It's fairly opposite of my personal experience during my time with the company. There were moments where I would kind of forget that I was actually just performing, and I would kind of immerse into the dance, and it would feel terrible sometimes. I like doing flips, I like doing techniques, and you think that's very, very cool, but it's even cooler when you get to perform around the world doing what you love.
Today, our guest is Mingye Liu, a former Shen Yun performer. In fact, one of the first Shen Yun dancers. We reminisce about the company's early days, get his thoughts on a recent media attack, and the most difficult role he ever had on stage. I'm Leeshai Lemish, and this is Shen Yun Voices. Ming, thank you for coming over.
Thank you for having me.
I wanted to talk to you because these articles came out criticizing Shen Yun, and you're a former dancer. What are your thoughts?
So I did read the article, and honestly, I was disappointed that such a large media would publish an article like that, because it did seem like fairly skewed in the way it was done. The story was perhaps one-sided, and it's fairly opposite of my personal experience during my time with the company.
How so?
So when I first entered the company, it was the very, very early days. I was actually one of the original dancers that went on the Shen stage, and it was basically this company that was very, very focused on being the top-notch company of, in this world, a very, very top-notch performing arts company. And, everybody from the dancers to your managers were very focused on making this a world-class premier company. And on top of that, it wasn't like everybody was just sort of there working like a machine or, just a number or just a dot on the stage. We had real interactions with each other. We had real interactions with our management, and we worked hard, but so did they, and they took care of us, from like day one. So seeing what the article was writing, I was really confused, and I understand maybe there's a little bit of, I would say, personal bias, or maybe personal experiences can vary a little bit, but I would say if you were to look at hard facts, it would probably paint an opposite picture.
You danced, I think it was, 8 or 9 years?
Yeah, I was there for 9 years before I transitioned into dance education, and now I'm currently working as a department head at a private arts high school. And I've actually taken a lot of what I learned from the company to my current position, and I can say it responds well with the students and the parents.
So did you overlap? Did you know some of the people who were in the article?
In fact, I did. We had danced together for a number of years before they departed from the company.
So why do you think they had such a different perspective from your experience?
Well, first of all, I think everyone has a different experience and a different way of interpreting the same thing. And I can imagine how perhaps a personal grudge or maybe a personal misunderstanding, or maybe just simply wishing that the company had a different policy to suit personal needs or personality could contribute to that. And again, we work in a very demanding environment. It's very highly professional. It's highly demanding, technically, and also in terms of the amount of energy that you put into it, right? So I would say it's perhaps it's not unique just to Shen Yun. Maybe it's also something that you would see in other top-tier companies where the demand is very, very high, and perhaps not everybody is suitable for that type of environment.
How did you become a Shen Yun dancer?
So I had heard through the grapevines that there was this very unique opportunity coming up, and it was actually this performing arts company that was presenting classical Chinese dance. Now, prior to that, I would call myself a martial artist.
Okay.
I had done traditional Chinese martial arts. I had done Chinese wushu, and actually, from early childhood, my teacher at the time was wanted to train me into a competitive wushu artist.
Where was this?
This was in LA. So this is in California, and I had done wushu. I did eventually transitioning into traditional Chinese martial arts. I had also done some other traditional Chinese cultural-related performances, and to me, it just felt like it was a part of my identity. So hearing about this opportunity, I thought, hey, this sounds like something really cool at the time. I guess the boyish nature in me at the time thought, I get to be a part of this cool thing, and I get to be on stage and dance with a bunch of other guys. I joke with other people, right? If I could, I'd be a ninja.
What was so cool about it for you that Did you think you could be a ninja on stage? Was that the idea?
I like doing flips, I like doing techniques, and you think that's very, very cool, but it's even cooler when you get to perform around the world doing what you love. Now, of course, Shen Yun is not just about doing techniques. It's a full system that presents classical Chinese dance, and so it goes beyond that. So through kind of getting to know the company a little more, and through presenting Chinese classical dance, and through training in this art form a little bit more, you sort of have this appreciation where like everything I had done as a child, it fits right here, where I can take that passion and I can take some of the knowledge and some of the skills that I had learned and present it here. Like, this is why I'm here.
What was it like to transition from martial arts to dance?
To be honest, it was very humbling.
Humbling.
Yeah. So in the beginning, I went in there a little more, I would say a little arrogantly, because I think as a child, I had been a very competitive person. I had always been a high achiever and always kind of the guy to show other people how things are done and to teach other people. And I took that mentality and I came and I said, well, look, dance, it's not as tiring as my martial arts training, and I can already do a lot of the stuff. However, I quickly learned that dance and martial arts, there are some similarities, but the way you present and the entire ideology behind it is a little bit different.
What do you mean?
So in martial arts, a lot of the focus is on attacks. Okay, so the end result is really the focus, right? I had trained myself to basically focus on that. But in dance, it's all about the process. So in a lot of ways, that was sort of my personality as well. I had to change myself from a person that was that just wanted the results, whether it's being competitive or trying to be that high achiever in class, wanting the grade, to someone who really took care of the process of getting there. So I had to let myself slow down. I had to change the way that I moved. I had to change the mentality behind each movement. And it was a difficult process for me. I was always getting corrected. Hey, you're too fast. Hey, that movement is too harsh. You have to actually pay attention to to that path for that movement. And for me, it was almost like I had to train my body, once again.
So what was your relationship with those teachers who were correcting you?
The teachers, I think they're very, very strict. And but at the same time, they're very strict because they want to do everything right. They want to give you the right knowledge. So they wanted to make sure that I was doing the right thing and that I had a good understanding of why something was right or wasn't right. And everything that happened in the studio, it was just being responsible to me, on an individual basis, right? It shows me that they're paying attention to me and that they actually care. And then outside of class, sometimes we would joke around and maybe we would have a soda together or something.
How strict were they?
Through different methods of cues, our teachers would correct us. And of course, you had teachers that were maybe not as creative and they would speak very loudly in class. And there's a reason for that. It's because, one, you're in a class with like 16, 17 other people. It's a big class. You have a piano playing. The music is kind of loud. And the teacher has to make sure that you understand that you are being corrected. And so sometimes it may sound harsh, but it's actually so that you can get the message.
How does it compare, for example, to your martial arts teachers?
So in martial arts, it's actually, I would say in a lot of ways, a little more harsh. Because after all, in martial arts, you're sort of, it is based in fighting. I broke my nose in martial arts training. And, nobody treated it like it was like the end of the world. I mean, I was bleeding, I cleaned it up, and then we just kind of went about our business, right? So I would say martial arts, you deal with a lot more. And here, it's like maybe from an outsider, they would listen to a teacher yelling, and they might think, oh, why is that teacher yelling? But when they listen to the content, it's just strictly business. Hey, you need to move your arm up, your arm is too low, it's a little too high, it's a little too limp. Things of that sort.
Is there anything that's like maybe a Chinese educational style compared to a Western ballet or gymnastics, or do you think it's similar across the board?
In my years doing dance education, I've actually had to, the chance to work with a lot of, dancers who are like ballet teachers and even modern dance. And to be honest, it's just what dance teachers do. It's the way that they care about you. You have to be loud enough so that your students can hear you, but you're not doing it in a way that's harming them. You're literally just letting them know that they are doing something wrong.
What would you say to dancers who just really did not enjoy the experience of the teachers correcting them?
I think in dance and maybe even in high-level athletics, you sort of have to let go of your ego. I think when people get hurt by it, it's because they misinterpret that and they feel like they're being hurt. Maybe their feelings are being heard because someone is speaking too loudly, or that you don't want to be corrected because you think that you can't accept the fact that maybe you're wrong, right? And I think that's a process of really just maturing.
What was it like for you joining a brand new company, not really knowing where it was going? It had a big vision, like you said, wanting to be the top, but you joined something that was just starting from the ground up.
In the beginning, I didn't really think that much about it. It was more of like, hey, let's do this and see where it goes, right? This is like such a cool opportunity. We're going to travel the world. I don't know what's going to happen in 2 years or 3 years, but at least this year, it's probably going to be pretty amazing. And I have all these amazing people with me. They're all highly motivated. And if anything is going to work, I think this group is going to work.
Yeah, that first year, because we only had the one group,
Yeah.
we really did go everywhere.
Oh, yeah. And there were times where I was on the plane thinking, wow, like, am I actually doing this? Like, I've just been to like 20 different countries in the past 2 months, and we have like another 10 cities to go. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Could you have imagined then where Shen Yun is now with 8 companies?
Well, at the time, I really couldn't. It was just sort of like just step by step. At the time, it was just, let's get our show done properly. Let's make sure that we're, everybody's doing their job and we're all, motivated to keep this thing going until we're done with tour. So at the time, it wasn't so much like I'm going to think about 10 years in the future or 20 years in the future. It was just more of a sort of living in the moment.
You've been out of the company for what, 9, 10 years?
About 9 years now, yeah.
And do you go see performances or do you keep in touch with people?
Oh, yeah. And, we still talk, we still chat, and it's kind of like just old times. They're still smiling, they're still, enjoying what they do, and they still find the importance in what they do. I do watch the shows. So almost annually, I would go watch the Shen Yun shows and, kind of talk to the friends afterwards. And it's very, even for me, right, it's very refreshing just kind of seeing all that on stage. And every time I'll think back to the old days, of when I was on that stage and the excitement that I felt when the curtain opened.
Do you think the company has changed in any way from your first early days compared to what you're hearing from people now?
I think if anything, it's gotten much better. Everything is much more professional, much more systematic. There is and there's just a lot more for you on campus. And so I think if anything, I wish I was a new dancer, now entering the company, because everything is done. We had like very little back then to work with, and everything was kind of built step by step.
What have you seen that Shen Yun has gotten better over the years since when you were there?
The whole infrastructure and just the professionalism of operation. So when we started, it was kind of bare minimum. We had like 2 studios. In the very beginning, we had like 1.
That was the second one. Okay.
Right. So what happened was the guys would do class in the actual studio one day, and the girls would do the class on there the other day, and we would kind of switch, right? So if you didn't have class in that studio, you would have to go into the cafeteria and push away all the tables.
Yep.
And we had these bars set up, and that was your class for that day. Rehearsal was just in that one big studio that we had.
That doesn't happen anymore.
No. Now I don't even know how many, but it's like there's studios everywhere.
Yeah.
So the facilities have really, really improved. Marley is top notch. When we do like rehearsals and stuff, everything is just, you got nice curtains, you have a nice stage, you have like just, everything is on a professional level so that your practice space is the same as your performance space.
Yeah.
They're used to that professional environment.
Yeah. It's a real simulation of the experience.
In Shen Yun's early days, we would just kind of bring out mats and do tumbling on the mats and whatnot. But now, they have all these facilities built for training tumbling.
Yeah, the tumbling room is pretty amazing.
Just like what you would have in like a gymnastics studio.
Yeah.
It's fun to just jump in there.
It's really hard to get out. If you're not in shape, it's very hard to get out of there.
Yeah, so basically it's, you can literally crash and not feel anything.
Did you ever have any injuries while performing?
Oh, of course. I think for male dancers, it's more of a thing. It's more common. We do a lot of tumbling and, a lot of jumping, and, that it can add up. And, maybe one day you do something wrong, you're not paying attention, or you're just fatigued and, something happens.
So what happened to you?
I actually strained my Achilles. And I pulled my right calf. I had wrist injuries. I had a right knee injury. Luckily, nothing was broken. Okay, it did take me out of commission for a brief period of time, but I was always able to kind of bounce back and do what I needed to do. So I mean, I always got a chance to rest.
In the articles, they were saying is that Shen Yun performers are denied medical care or forced to perform injured. Have you ever seen anything like that, or have anything about that you can say?
From what I've seen, everybody that has had injury has always either had medical care or they were given like plenty of rest. Or they were, for maybe something a little more minor, they get like an ice pack or something to kind of recover, and hopefully they're back the next day. So you kind of have this, whether it's a minor injury or maybe like an actual serious one. People do get the necessary care, and they get flown out to like hospitals and things like that to get surgery done.
One of the other things that some of the people are talking about is the company culture in terms of management. How many different company managers did you have?
I have had, I would say 4. Yeah, I have had, yeah, 4.
4. What was your relationship like with them?
I mean, they all had different personalities.
Yeah.
But overall, though, I don't think I had any like major issues with them. I think at the end of the day, if you're talking to them about something serious, they are still fairly responsible, and they want to make sure everybody is doing well, and the show goes smoothly.
How would you describe in general the relationship between performers and management in Shen Yun?
I've never been afraid to talk to them directly. Whenever I had issues, I would, ask, do you have like 10 minutes? Can we sit down? I want to tell you something that I'm concerned about. And I was kind of the person who maybe even spoke up for other people, and if I noticed something was not right, I would kind of go and talk to the managers and try to bring up issues before they became worse.
You have a sister in a company.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, she's been there for a while too.
Yeah, she has. She's still performing.
What are you hearing from her about company culture and what life is like?
Honestly, I don't hear a lot of complaints. The complaints that I do hear, it's more on a personal level. It's like she wishes that she could do something better, or like she's frustrated that, I wish I could just do this better. I wish I was better at that.
Like what?
So, for instance, tumbling. Tumbling is not her not her strong suit. So she's like, man, I wish I was better at tumbling. Then I could do more here and there, and just things like that. It's not like like they're giving us so much pressure, or like it's so miserable. It's just like on an individual basis, I wish I was a more competent dancer in certain areas.
But based on your experience, and you're also a dance teacher now, do you ever work with her and give her tips on her tumbling?
So I actually do. Honestly, I do. And my biggest tip for her is you got to get rid of the fear. You can totally do it because I've seen her do it. You can totally do it. You're just afraid, and you have to just set aside that fear. And we all do when it comes to tumbling. And so, but that's more of like kind of individual growth. You overcome that. You become a better dancer in this area because you overcame that.
How do you actually go through the process of learning tumbling? For somebody who's never done a flip and just sees you guys on stage, like the idea of letting go of the hands entirely, and that's just a very basic aerial, right? How do you learn tumbling? What's the step-by-step process?
Well, in tumbling, you have to start from the very basics, and you have to do things like handstands and cartwheels, and like back bends, back walkovers, front walkovers. And then when you move beyond that, you're always going to get spotted. So you have a teacher there, and that teacher is going to spot each individual person one by one. And, this is how it works in gymnastics as well, not just in dance.
Are you doing this on the stage? Where are you doing this?
This is all on mats.
Okay.
So we always start on mats. And, I mean, now the facilities are even better. You have an actual tumbling room where the whole floor is just, like, kind of soft. You know? So, but anyway, even right now at our school, where we don't have a nice tumbling room that's similar to this gymnastics studio, we actually just put out mats on the on the dance floor, and teachers would spot students one by one, and you do repetitions, and each repetition you're telling students like what they're doing wrong, and through that students are developing this confidence, and they kind of get over their fear gradually because they get lighter and lighter and lighter, and then all of a sudden they find out, hey, I can do this by myself, and then they make it over, and they do another and another and another, and they have it.
It looks like a lot of fun. But I do hear from dancers that there's this moment where they have to kind of let go of the Dumbo feather and just go for it.
Right. You do. And you have to trust your training, because when you first achieve a certain skill, you have to kind of just trust that your body still knows how to do it. And secondly, you usually, when you're at that stage, you're going to have instructors on the side, sometimes on both sides, And I've personally been through this where I'll fail a midair. Right, I'm in the middle of the air. I forgot what I'm doing, and I kind of flop, and then like I feel this arm like underneath me just carrying me over. Right, so it takes a certain degree of experience to teach tumbling, and through that experience, you understand that the teachers have that experience. So as a student, or as somebody just learning a certain new tumbling skill, you learn to trust them. Yeah.
How common are tumbling injuries during training while learning them?
I wouldn't say it's that common at all. I think every single time that I hurt myself, it was because I was messing around on my own. It
Just
was
like on
never
a
doing
beach or something, or
no. It was like for instance, I came back from a break day once. From an off day, I feel well rested, and it's evening. I go into the dance studios, and I just feel like doing something. I didn't have to do anything that day, but I decided to try something silly, and I end up hurting my ankle or something like
Okay.
that. So and even now in dance teaching, most of the time students don't even hurt themselves in dance class or in dance training. They hurt themselves because they're goofing off. So you do something, and it's like, oh man, like I wish I didn't do that.
what are some of your favorite moments from your time in Shen Yun?
The moments that I actually kind of think back to, a lot of times is really like kind of like the early days. I remember we finished our first tour, and we went on break. We went on a long break, so people could go home and hang out with their family for a little bit. And I remember I was at home in LA, and after about 4 days, I was like, oh, I can't wait to go back. Can't wait to go hang out with the guys again. I'm gonna go back to campus. And I remember just walking up those steps. I got off my flight, got on a train, and then I got back at our campus. And then like from afar, I hear guys laughing because they're already in the studio. They're already like practicing and getting back into shape and having a good time. And I felt this excitement. I couldn't wait to get back there and hang out with them, train with them again. So that's one. Yeah, and then just all the moments where people covered each other, like that one moment where we had an instructor on his off day, he went and and did a whole show just to cover for a dancer from another company. Yeah, and it's just those times really they're very memorable and very touching.
Do you have any favorite characters that you portrayed on stage?
I actually liked performing as various renditions of the Monkey King. I just think he's this very clever and very goofy character, and he's very righteous. Even though I would say he's a prankster, but at the end of the day, he's very very righteous. And sometimes it reminds me of some of the boyishness that we have when we're growing up, and but at the end of the day, you're still this good person, and you're still doing something very positive and very you're kind of helping society in various different ways.
Were there any roles that were particularly difficult for you?
I've actually never been a fan of performing the evil policeman on stage, and one particular piece kind of stands out, and I still kind of think back to it at times. And it's this dance where a group of evil policemen are basically bullying this little girl. And she has this banner in her hand, and we rip it away. And as she's reaching for the banner, my choreography for that section is to stomp on her hand. All right. And that was kind of heart-wrenching for me at times. And it was almost like there were moments where I would kind of immerse myself into that program, into that dance, and it was like, I'm about to do this horrible thing to this little girl.
Why was that so hard for you?
I think because it was very personal. It had a personal connection. So, my family, a lot of the members of my family, we practice Falun Gong. So, the Shen Yun is not all about Falun Gong performances, but we do have a couple of pieces where we do kind of put this on stage and bring awareness so that people can see what's been happening. And for me, it's personal because my aunt and my uncle in China, they were actually homeless for 10 years, all because they practiced Falun Gong and all because they just wanted to follow truth, compassion, and forbearance.
What do you mean they were homeless?
In China, you're not allowed to practice. You're not allowed to have. You cannot believe in Falun Gong. You can't follow these concepts, despite how good they are. And they live in this rural area, and somebody in their village found out that they had been secretly practicing, and the police came. Luckily, a friend of theirs warned them and told them, "Look, you got to go now. Forget everything. Just run." So they took some money. They took some like bare necessities, and they just got out of there 10 minutes before the police came. And you can't use your ID. You can't use credit cards because you're gonna get tracked. You can't use anything. So they had no set place to go for 10 years. They were just wandering the country, going from city to city, job to job, just trying to survive while still following up on, keeping up with their faith and just surviving on a day-to-day basis. And that was it. So for me, doing that on stage to, of course, to this fellow performer, to this fellow dancer who is portraying a little girl, it was kind of like I was doing that to them. So for me, sometimes I would there were moments where I would kind of forget that I was actually just performing, and I would kind of immerse into the dance, and it would feel terrible sometimes.
And you had to do it day in and day out.
Yep, every
for a whole
single day.
tour.
Yeah, the dance before, you're this righteous, protector figure. And then that next dance, I had to be this, this very cruel policeman that was, attacking this innocent girl. We've had people who have watched our performance, and they would come up to us and was like, "Hey, and these are Chinese people," and said, "I was there. I lived it. I experienced that persecution. And you guys need to be a little more evil." And this is after me feeling that I've just been this evil, terrible person. So reality is probably even worse than what we've artistically portrayed.
Did you ever talk to your family about it?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, my parents have seen the show, and they would kind of comment on how I performed as a policeman.
Did they think you were compelling?
They did. I guess it's a compliment in some ways. And to them, they understood that they understand that this is just a performance, but of course, we have to make it compelling to really tell the story and to really push the message home.
Why was it so important to have this depicted on stage?
Really to bring awareness, because it's not just one or two people. You have over 100 million people practicing this, and what I'm portraying on stage has actually happened in various renditions to a lot of the people in China who practice this faith, and the mainstream media doesn't cover it. So we have to be our own voice in some ways.
What about your family back in China? Did they know at the time that you were performing with Shen Yun?
Yeah, they do. And some of them actually got to watch us in Taiwan. So one year we were in Taiwan, and some of them actually took a flight from China, flew to Taiwan just to watch, my sister and I perform on stage.
What was their reaction?
I think they were proud in many ways. I don't think there was really like misunderstanding or like, I don't know why you're doing this. It was just like,
These were not Falun Gong practitioners?
no, they don't practice. They were just, well, first of all, they were happy to see us. And then they were even happier to see that we were part of an organization like this. Okay, because again, the show is like 20-something pieces, and you have two that are maybe a little sensitive because it touches on the persecution of Falun Gong, but the rest is just all about culture. Traditional culture. You have your ethnic and folk dances. You have your funny stories. You have like all these legends that you're telling on stage, and they were happy to see that because they basically can't see it in China, and it's their culture. And now we're pushing this to the international stage. So it was a good reunion, and they were just, they were impressed by what we had accomplished.
Yeah, it's really interesting when we perform in Taiwan, right? You have all these people from China and Vietnam, other places in Asia,
Right.
but especially from China, as tourists,
Right.
and coming to see the show, like especially to see the show because they can't see it there.
Right. Yep.
So your
And
family was.
that's exactly what they did, and they didn't just take a flight by themselves and get on a bus by themselves. It was actually large groups of people
Wow.
that they were with traveling over and seeing the show. So yeah, I mean they're proud because this is them. This is their history. This is their culture.
You in the group that was going to go to Hong Kong too, right?
Yes, I was.
I remember that rehearsal really
Right.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your reaction when you knew first that we were going to go and then that we weren't?
Well, I was excited because wow, this is like we're bringing this kind of to the doorsteps of mainland China, and maybe my relatives can just drive over the border and watch me perform.
You had 7 shows. I think they were all sold out already.
Yeah, they were sold out. People were excited. And then when the show was canceled, I was it was disappointing. But at the same time, I understood why. It wasn't going to be that easy. I remember, like, I was thinking to myself, wow, this is really going to happen. Like, when we were like right there, it was like just
So
like days
exciting.
away.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're actually going to let us like go and do this, and then they drop the hammer.
It seems almost unimaginable now to think of performing in Hong Kong today. That was in a brief little window where it was like it was possible.
Yeah, it was. Now I think things have gotten much more complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think a lot of performers still hold on to the hope of bringing the show back to China sometime. It didn't happen when you were dancing.
And I have no doubt that it's probably going to happen at some point. And if that happens, I would probably just buy a ticket and go back and whether it's helping in some ways or watching the show.
What was it like for you to transition from being a dancer to a dance instructor?
It was, I think, something I had sort of been imagining towards the last couple of years of my career as a dancer on stage. I had started to envision myself as a dance teacher and how I would teach them. And when it became a reality, I did actually take a lot of what I had learned from my dance teachers and from what I had, observed, and even like how the management dealt with things, into my dance teaching and now my management role.
Like
Yeah.
what?
So for example, there were so many cases where like the show is very tough, right? So there were times where you have dancers who just like they feel stressed out. So when I started teaching and I'm actually managing a dance department, it was just a thought
Yeah.
that made it clear to me that whatever I had learned and applied, it works. And it makes it makes a big difference, especially when kids of this age, they need just somebody there to support them.
Is it difficult for somebody who's not Chinese to get the right feel for the dance and the stories that are being portrayed?
I think if a student really gets into the art form, it sort of becomes ingrained into them. It's like it becomes a part of them. Everybody pretty much can start to understand and to really get this art form, and to perform it with a proper feel.
What do you think is in it for non-Chinese dancers in terms of choosing this art form as opposed to other dance forms?
Um, I think it's because of how dynamic the art form is. So when let's just, I guess we'll talk about the non-Chinese dance students that we've had. When they come in and they learn Chinese dance, initially it's just like, hey, this is like really cool because we get to do all these techniques and I get to do tricks. And then they learn about how expressive it is, right? They learn about the yun, behind it, and they learn a little bit about the history behind it, and like the character that they're portraying. And it's like mind blowing because they see just how massive the historical background is for this particular, form of dance. And it's almost like they have this transformation inside their mind where they're not looking at it from just the surface movements, but they're looking at it as this cultural expression.
What did you take away from Shen Yun that is now part of your life after Shen Yun?
Okay, well, I think the biggest thing is just how much work it takes to be at a high level. And it doesn't matter if it's dance. It can be also gymnastics. It can also be sports, athletics. It can also be maybe running a company. You have so let's talk about gymnasts. You have Olympic level gymnasts, and they're on TV and they're competing for the Olympics. But then maybe there are hundreds of other gymnasts who are also top tier level and they trained their whole life for this moment and they didn't make the trials. So now they have to also but you don't know until you get there, right? You have to work hard, you get there, and then it's like, okay, well, I didn't make it, right? So for us, I think it's actually been a lot better. We didn't, I've never had to worry about like attrition. I didn't have to worry about where I was going to do like in the off season, what I was going to do if I need to find another job. So in that sense, I've always been well cared for. But yeah, just the degree of professionalism, right? It's like you work hard, your company also works hard, and then you do your best, and your company does their best to take care of you. And then that element, it kind of goes beyond what a lot of other companies will do for you, I would imagine, and it's something that I would like to give my students. So now in my role as a dance educator, I want to be able to make my students feel that all their hard work is worth it. And this is like my takeaway from personally witnessing a lot of things in the time that I spent with the company. You know, a lot has happened, and it's not always smooth sailing. You know, people go through drama, people go through hardships, and it kind of seems like we have this like we support each other, and everyone that's above us, like the management, the admin, they're also there to make sure that we're in a good place.
As a dad, your son is now what?
Too.
2. I saw him the other day. Very cute.
Thank you.
Do you? What would you think about him joining Shen Yun if he says to you, "I want to be a dancer"?
Well, I would support it. You know, if he joins as a dancer or a musician, I'm not pushy for that. It's just I just think it would be this amazing place to grow up. And he's able to grow with the company. He's able to develop all these good personal relationships. He's able to, to have all these friends, supporting him, and a company that actually cares. Like a lot of us, we kind of grew our family during the time that we were with the company.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it would probably be the best outcome.
And what if he doesn't want to do anything performing arts related? Wants to go into engineering or some other career?
Well, I mean, I think that's up to him. I'm not pushy. I think it's, each person kind of has their path and maybe something that they're more in tune with. And if that's the case, then so be it. He can be an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor, whatever Asian people
Just those
like.
3 options.
The typical Asian options, yes. Now I suppose if life somehow takes him down a path that's unexpected, then so be it. And I'm here to support him.
Cool. Well, it's very good to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Leeshai. Thanks for having me.